Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next session on Cyber Back to School. Welcome to this to my second session on the Cyber Back to School series of events that are organized by Dwayne and Captain Hyperscaler. So, thank you for organizing this event. I would like to greet everyone who will spend some time to learn about Microsoft Entra ID defaults, security defaults, and what are the good times to implement that. Uh, and getting started, as you know, with Azure Security on the right foot is not an easy task because there are a lot of different services where you need to them up and put the specific settings that are right for your company and requirements. However, we also know that recent cybersecurity events and developments actually drive the focus toward building a strong identity and access in any cloud solutions that we are creating for our customers. So, long story short, this session is for all the IT administrators, security professionals, and anyone who is interested in understanding security aspects of Entra ID and what's the bare minimum security defaults that you need to be aware about. In this session, we will also have a brief demo about the settings on Microsoft Entra ID portal to get you some understanding in terms of once you set the security defaults, what to expect and what type of settings you can still actually change based on your organizational needs. So I hope you are interested and excited. Let's dive to the this event. This is a little bit bio information, brief information about me. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer for the last 17 years and still going strong there. Hope to, go as much as possible to help all the students to learn Microsoft technologies. My strengths in Microsoft Azure. I love to teach Microsoft Azure to the students. I'm also Microsoft Azure MVP and very honored to be recognized by Microsoft for my contributions to the tech community. I'm founder at cloudmarathoner.com. You may hear and see some Cloud Marathoner hashtagged posts on LinkedIn or any other places, social media places that you are following the Cloud Marathon itself. And in my post, I do encourage everyone to share useful tips and bits in your daily cloud journey so that you can help the beginners to succeed as well. And you may also see me at Cloud Launch and Learn team. I'm a core member there where we try to bring the different speakers to our session to share their interesting knowledge about cloud and overall technology. Okay, enough about myself. Let's move here to the next slide and look at what we will cover in this session. So in this session, we will first start with the what is what is the Microsoft Entra defaults and why you need that. After that, we will switch to focus on what are the enforced security defaults within that setup that you get out of the box. And then we'll look into deployment considerations when you are trying to deploy that. And then we'll have a brief demo about Entra Admin Portal and demo how you can, what are the what are the Microsoft Entra ID security defaults where you can turn them on and what type of settings to expect. And then we'll have a wrap up at the end with Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or you can directly, get in touch with me on LinkedIn or on the Twitter X. All right, I hope that's interesting. So let's dive in. Before diving into each of these details, let's have a very brief look into the T-Rex Solutions LLC, the company where I'm employed, so you can get some. I have some good news about the company. That if you are looking for your next opportunity, it might be the good right choice for you. So here's a small info about T-Rex Solutions. It's a mid-sized company located in East Coast DMV area here in the United States. The headquarters are in Bethesda, Maryland, but we do have a broad number of people, T-Rexes who are all across the United States. because there's a flexible work from home policy that's applied for the projects where it is possible to be it's basically a possibility that we have in place. So the TRX solutions themselves, as a company, we celebrated 25th anniversary this year, and it continues to grow and on contracts where mission critical systems are modernized and delivered for our customers. We have a number of federal customers, and we help them with mission critical workloads and processes. One of the huge deliveries that we did was the US Census 2020 during the pandemic time. Nobody was expecting that, but that program went well and the mission was delivered. We have healthy relationship with cloud solution providers, and we look forward for the cloud and data engineers to join our growing team. There are a number of new opportunities for cloud engineers, for data developers, data engineers, cloud architects, and there also might be different quality analysts and different engineering positions that you might be interested in. So if you are on the market, please get in touch with me through the LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to help you with those questions. We also have fully cleared positions that you may require some prior kind of experience with the federal government positions. In addition to that, I want to mention that TRX, let me just highlight that. So we have this TRX Cares, and it plays a crucial role locally in the area by supporting underserved youth, veterans, and local organizations. And again, Team TRX is hiring. Join our team. Let me know if you have any questions. That said, let's move forward here. As mentioned, so first we'll start with what are the security defaults on Entra ID. So, and the main purpose of security defaults in Entra is to help protect your organization from identity-related attacks like password spray, replay, and phishing are those commonly, met in today's environments. So first of all, why we need them? Uh, the reason is simple. Security can be very difficult, and setting up the correct way security defaults is always a challenge. Second, based on Microsoft analysis, more than 99.9% of those common identity-related attacks, are basically focused on identity. So preventing them and having a good secure posture to defend against them is very important. The third one is the primary goal is to ensure that organizations have at least a basic level of security enabled at no extra cost. Again, Microsoft Entra defaults, they come at no cost, and that's what it provides. Next, another common identity-related attacks are also stopped, as you know, by using MFA, multi-factor authentication, and blocking legacy authentication protocols, right? So that's another thing that you can do. And finally, another important prevention is protecting the privileged activities like access to Azure portal. Now, let's look into who is intended for. So who are intended to do this Microsoft Entra ID security defaults? What are the use cases where you should or should not enable it for your organizations, right? So there are cases where enabling Microsoft Entra security defaults is not advised. So let's look at that. So who is it for? First, it is mainly the Microsoft Entra ID security defaults are mainly targeted toward organizations who want to increase their security posture, but don't know how or where to start while using a free tier of Microsoft Entra ID licensing. As you know, Microsoft Entra ID licensing comes with a number of different licenses. There's P1, P2, there's free tier. So Microsoft Entra ID security defaults are intended for those free tiers. Then, by setting the security defaults and analyzing its security, and its settings for your organization, you can easily increase the security posture of your digital estate. And we'll look at the example where on the users, on groups, on devices, you can have more options and flexibility to do that security settings. Next, another benefit is by following initial guidance, you can start on the right foot with recommended settings of the Microsoft team. So that's another good advice there. Another one is that, again, it is also important to mention that security defaults are intended for organizations who rely on free tier of Microsoft Entra ID, where customer in the scenarios where as a customer or yourself, your organization, where you do not require to have P1 or P2 licenses for Microsoft Entra, then where services like privileged identity management, conditional access, trusted IPs, user and sign-in risk-based policies, fraud alerts, etc. So if you are not using those things and you don't have basically your uh, P1 and P2 licenses, then you and your organization needs to rely on this Microsoft Entra ID security defaults. And finally, you should not use security defaults for Microsoft Entra if your organization has complex requirements. For those type of needs, you need to enable conditional access, which also comes with the requirement to have those, P1 or P2 licenses. So I hope that kind of makes clear who needs to enable that at this moment. And now let's look at some details in enforced security defaults when this option is switched on. Basically, when you want to switch on Azure Security, Azure Microsoft Entra ID security defaults, what is going to be enforced? Let's look at that. So once you enable your security defaults, as you see, in order to enable that, you need to go to Microsoft Entra Admin Center, and here you navigate to the overview under the main directory. Here you would be able to navigate to the properties, and then if you click on manage security defaults, you should be able here to enable them. So this is the way how you basically go and enable that. However, if your tenant was created on or after October 22nd, 2019, which was almost like 5 years ago, then the defaults might be enabled in your tenant, already. So, and enabling those defaults basically protect all of your users. Security defaults to protect this will protect all of your users. Security defaults are being rolled out to all new DOS tenants that were created again after 2019 October 22. And again, these settings are recommended when you don't have any conditional access policies enabled on your tenant, then you don't have premium licenses that you can use. And if your tenant doesn't actively use those legacy authentication clients, then that's another point, where you wanna enable it. And then after these settings are enabled, meaning once you enable the Azure Microsoft Entra ID security defaults, then all users in organization will need to register for multi-factor authentication. That's part of the precondition there. That said, now let's look at some details in enforcing those security defaults. What exactly get enforced when you switch on and enable those Microsoft Entra ID security defaults? So the things that get enforced once you enable it are all based on the security defaults that are recommended actively by Microsoft Entra ID team. First of all, here as you see, starting from again July 29th, 2024, meaning from this year, from July month, end of July, new tenants may not have those 14-day grace period for the users to register for MFA, meaning that it's enforced right away. And Microsoft made this change to help reduce the risk of account compromise during those 14-day window, as the MFA, which is known as multi-factor authentication, can block over 99% of those identity-based attacks. Second here, another common method to improve the production, another common method to improve the protection of privileged accounts is to require a stronger form of account verification for sign-ins, like requiring MFA, right, when the users are logging in. And the recommendation is to set separate accounts for administration and standard productivity tasks to significantly reduce the number of times your admins are prompted for MFA. Again, there's a standard productivity task that a user is going to do, and there are some administrative tasks. So you want to make sure that you separate those duties into different accounts. So after registration is finished with Microsoft Entra, the administrator's role will require to do multi-factor authentication every time they sign in using their credentials. Next here, Microsoft decides when a user is prompted for multi-factor authentication. And as you know, that's actually based on a number of different factors, such as location, device, the role and tasks that end user is trying to perform. This functionality protects all registered applications, including the SaaS applications that users are enabled to basically use for their disposal. The next one here is legacy authentication, which is a term that refers to authentication requests made by, for example, clients that don't use modern authentication. And as an example, it could be the Office 2010 clients. They do not have that. Another option might be any client that uses older mail protocols, such as SMTP, POP3, or IMAP. And finally, here, after you enable security defaults in your tenant, any user accessing the services such as Azure Portal, Microsoft Entra Admin Center, Azure PowerShell, or Azure CLI, they must complete multi-factor authentication. That's actually done in order to enforce the security there. And this is something that you need to educate your users for what to expect. But before jumping the gun here, let's look into some deployment considerations once you decide that you want to move toward Microsoft Entra ID security defaults for your organization. And when you get that preparation, of course, the first one is very critical step to inform users about upcoming changes, registration requirements, and any necessary user actions that your users need to be ready to do. One of the recommended steps is to prepare your users for new experience and help them to ensure that it's a successful rollout. Right, so we don't want your users to get stressed out because they don't know what to expect. And next step here is your users must use verification. Your users might use those verification codes from Microsoft Authenticator app, but can only register using the notification option. Users can also use any other third-party application using OAuth time-based one-time password to generate those codes. So this is basically part of those apps that they need to enable for their MFA logins. Next one is on any B2B guest users or B2B direct connect users that access your directory. They are going to be treated as the same as your organizational users. Next one here is in case your organization is a previous user of per user based MFA scenario, then don't get alarmed when you are not seeing the enable or enforce status when you look at the multi-factor authentication status page. Disabled is the appropriate status for users who are using security defaults or conditional access based multi-factor authentication. So that's another thing that you need to keep in mind. And finally, organizations that choose to implement the conditional access policies that replace basically by replacing the security defaults must disable security defaults. So if you are switching from Microsoft Entra ID security defaults into the conditional access, meaning you have the licenses that you want to enable and your conditions dictate to use that. Then you need to make sure that you disable your security defaults. It is basically a same step when you enable them, but you will be switching the drop down to a disabled state. Okay, I know that you might get into questions, how to compare between security defaults or conditional access. It might be a little bit confusing in the beginning, but there's a good table that you compare against. So let's look at the next slide where security defaults are compared to those conditional access in an easy, digestible way. So as you see in this table, while security defaults are good baseline to start your security posture, as they don't allow for the customization that many organizations actually require in their job. That's why conditional access policies provide a full range of customization that more complex organizations security requirements are actually needed. So as you see here, you can get there's a requirement on licensing that you need to have for conditional access. There's customization you can do on one of the forces. It is also shows who are enabled and what's the complexity of the implementation. Finally, as a recommendation, Microsoft recommends that organizations have two cloud only emergency access accounts that have permanently assigned to the global administration role. So these accounts are highly privileged and are not assigned to a specific individual. The accounts are limited to emergency. So that's why those accounts are called break glass accounts. And in those break glass account scenarios where normal accounts cannot be used or all other administrators are accidentally locked them out, you need to have those break glass accounts. These accounts should be created by following emergency access account recommendations from Microsoft. And in one of the recommendations there, if you set it up or you are aware about them, is to make sure that one of the accounts actually do not depend on any other service. For example, if you have a break glass account that relies on MFA, you want to make sure that the second account doesn't rely on MFA, to make sure that in the scenarios where your MFA service might be down, it's out of service, you still have possibility to log in on emergency scenarios to your account and do the necessary work for your customers. Okay, that's it. Now it's time for the demo. Let's look at Microsoft Entra ID security defaults and settings that you get once you enable that. Okay. So let's look at this is the small kind of intro about the demo. We'll look into Microsoft Entra Admin Center. We'll look at user settings, group settings, and device settings that you can go ahead and do the work. So let's switch here the screens. So this is the Microsoft Entra Admin Center where I switched in. So here under the, just a second, let me bring the zoom out. Okay, so let me switch back to so we are in Microsoft Entra Admin Center here, as you see. So to log in there, you just need on the URL to type entra.microsoft.com and you would be able to come there. So here, where we are is that we are currently under what's new page. And here you can look at the roadmap, see what's expected, highlights on the change, and change announcements are also here, so you can see what to expect in near future. So in addition to that, once you enable the defaults under the user settings here, you should be able to go under user settings and see the your default settings. As you see, there are a number of options here, starting by users. Do you want to give your users ability to register applications? So that's one of the things where you can have your own customization on Microsoft Entra ID security defaults. So do you want your non-admin users to create a tenant? That's another option here. security groups, you can switch on or off this option. Then there's another option for your guest users, what type of privileges you want to give to your guest users. You can choose one of these three here. And then, if you scroll down a little bit, you will see that you have an option for restricting access to Microsoft Entra Admin Center of your users. So do you want to provide that or not? It depends basically on the use case of your customers. Then we have this connection to the LinkedIn accounts if your organization allows that, or see benefit on that feature. You can always come and toggle that from yes to no, or you can select a specific group that you want to assign it. And then we have if you want to keep your users assigned, keep your users signed in once they sign in, so that when token expires, they can renew that. So this is user related settings. In addition to that, if you go to the groups here, you will see that you have a separate setting here for group settings. And once we navigate there, you will see that you have a number of settings here that you can change. First of them is here. If you want to restrict user ability to access groups featured in my group. Another one is, do you want to allow your users an option to create the security groups using the Azure portal, API, or PowerShell? And same thing here for the creation of MT65 groups. If that's something you want to enable, this is the place to do that. And let's look at one more setting before finalizing. So under the devices, you also have overview, and under overview you should be able to see device settings. So if there's certain defaults that you want to apply on the device level, this is the place to do that. So this will be, as you see, there's options to join the device to Microsoft Entra. Do you want to do that, or you want to do that on selected devices? Do you want to give an option for users to do that or not? And do you want to require multi-factor authentication to register to the joint devices? So probably this one you want to say yes, because this is important. And how many maximum devices you want to allow per user per registration. That's another option that you select here from this drop down. And then you can also put the local administrator settings, what type of privileges you want to enable here, and do you want to enable Microsoft Entra local administrator password solutions? That's another question and setting that you can always enable or disable. So once you do this change, so also don't forget to make sure that you press on a save button to make sure that changes are actually propagated. Okay, that said, now let's look at some learning resources that you can easily get from these shared slides. So I'm going to provide this in the details of this session that you can access and see that. So let's look at those learning resources that you may benefit. So first of all, there are security defaults in Microsoft Entra ID that you can go and look into them. Then we have good improve your security posture post that I highly recommend to read if for anyone who is actually taking actions on that item. Then we have emergency access accounts. If you remember, we talked about break loss accounts and what type of security settings, and as well as differentiations you want to have from day-to-day usage of the accounts. Then there's enabling MFA option, and then as well as checking your identity secure score and making sure that you are improving over time. And finally, you can also read about Azure Security Benchmark. That's another very good options that you can apply to your tenant to make it better. But another question that may arise is that, okay, is there a way that I can have some learning and hands-on experience to practice some of these things? And yes, there is such a thing called Applied Skills that was enabled by Microsoft free of charge, where you can learn from Microsoft Learn documents from the modules and then apply your skills to pass certain settings. And once you pass it, you will get basically your applied skill badge and notification. So let's look at that. So applied skills is, it looks like this. There are currently, I believe, close to 30 of this. Uh, let me see if I can. So if we go to the applied skills here, Microsoft. So here under Microsoft applied skills, you can get information about them. But if you wanna dive right away to those credentials, then you can also go to Microsoft Learn credentials, and then you can right away browse. Okay, and here if you type security, so I'm going to remove it for now. As you see, there's like 30 of them, and this is the basically URL. It's a common URL under the credentials where you want to make sure you are looking for applied skills. And then if for security related applied skills, if you search, there are 3 of them. Currently it's only brought the ones that have these. Let's search again here. So basically here under the applied skills, you can go and, for example, for security engineers and security solutions. Let's take this out. So for security, you have these 3 good applied skills tasks that you can try to practice your skills. Okay, that said, let me switch back here to the I hope that was very helpful for you. Let's if you have any questions, again, you are more than welcome to put them in the chat. I'll check them, and you can also reach me on the LinkedIn. That said, let's move to the wrap up of our session and look into what we covered in this session. So first of all, we start with the what is the security defaults, how to understand that, and why you need to basically give attention to those Microsoft Entra ID security defaults. Then we looked into what security policies are used in that security default. Next, we used into deployment considerations, what you need to take into account. And then we had a demo on Entra admin portal with the Azure security defaults and the settings on the user groups and as well as devices. And finally, there's a Q&A that you can put the questions and get them answered. Okay, that was quite enlightening, introduction here. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Cyber Back to School for organizing this event, and special thanks go to Dwayne for doing that first time and trying to bring different topics together in order to make sure that learning of cybersecurity actually happens in our cloud community. Thank you again, everyone, for joining and watching the sessions. You can check my blog, and you can get connected with me on the LinkedIn. And I hope now you have some good understanding what are the Microsoft Entra ID security defaults, when to enable them, why to enable them, and what are the use cases where you don't want to enable them. Again, thank you for joining my session. Have a great day, and I hope to see you on my next session. Have a great day.